was shooting this film, there was an insane amount of lights for literally like one angle. I think there was a total of 13 lights on this one shot. And we had them flip all this lighting for the reverse. And then he's like, can we just get the camera up first? I'm like, well, no, we need to get started on it now before we get there. Well, about half of that wasn't in the shot. And he was like, man, they give me crap about that every time we work. You remember that beautiful shot that we lit? Dude, it was so gorgeous. I wish it would have been in the movie.
Yeah. Welcome to another episode of the Rough Cut Club. I am your host, Joey Nicotra, here with my co-host, partner in crime, Mr. Shane Reitzammer. Shane, how are you doing today, bro?
Doing great, man. Loving life.
Loving life, man. I am loving life too. Loving being back in the studio today. And we have a super exciting episode because I have a good friend here with us, extremely talented, handsome, DP, First AC, camera operator extraordinaire, father, husband. Without further ado, welcome, Mr. Michael. Keep the shot in focus, Bradley.
Thanks for having me. Yeah. I appreciate it. That was a good introduction.
There you go.
Yeah, it was a big build-up.
I know. I got to
keep the shot in focus.
Yeah, giving out nicknames today for free. You may just get one.
I feel like there's a story behind that we're gonna get to hear later from you.
Absolutely. Well, I'm just trying to up the brand right now. So anyway, Michael, man, thank you for coming out, making the trip down here. We're excited to have you, get you on the show, man. So thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me out.
Yeah, man. So Michael has we've actually had the opportunity to work on a couple of projects together, some lasting a little bit longer than others, all of which seeming to have exciting stories attached to them. At least you could some can say exciting.
Nothing bad happened.
Nothing bad.
Mostly.
Yes, mostly. Yeah, nothing that we were responsible for anyway. But yeah, me and Michael have had the great fortune to work together on a couple of projects and make some movies and shoot some cool music videos over the years and just do a couple of neat things. And so for people that don't know you, though, can you tell us a little bit about you, your backstory, kind of, where is the start of your journey?
Okay. Well, you want me to tell the whole thing from the beginning?
Just like...
How did you get started in the industry? Let's hear
how did you get started as a filmmaker?
So that was kind of a trick, right? So when I was in high school, I actually wanted to be a computer engineer. And it was about junior year. They're like, hey, they pull you into your counselor's office. They're like, what do you want to do? Well, I want to build computers. Okay, well, let me find a class in our system that goes for that. Oh, here we go. There's this new technology class that just starts next year. Okay, great. I get in there. I see all my friends. I'm like, oh, well, these are my friends. Like, we must have something in common. That class was audio video production. And I think it actually had a different name. It was kind of like something weird, like AV technologies and blah, blah, blah. So the teacher, she's sitting there explaining the difference between a female and a male XLR cable. And she's like, all right, does anybody have any questions? I'm like, raise my hand. Yeah, when are we going to talk about building computers? And that was my first time dealing with somebody who had ever been in the industry. She was like, honey, if you think we're going to build computers, there's the door, just get out.
Dang.
Pretty extreme, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, like I said, my buddies were in there, and I was like, maybe this will be cool, to learn, so I stayed in there. And then I had this crazy idea, hey, maybe I'll go into broadcast journalism or become like a sports camera op or something. So I stuck with it. Year into that class, they offered me a paid internship at the school district. So I started shooting and attending at the same time, I guess. Fast forward outside of high school, I kept kind of just doing the same thing, like one-man band, camera operating jobs. And then at some point, I just got this idea about, well, actually, I take that back. I was going to say I got this idea about making movies, but it's not really what happened. It just kind of happened. I started experimenting with stuff and, learning more. And then before I knew it, I was like, I'm not even in the broadcast thing anymore. I never even went down that route. I just kind of went into filmmaking without even realizing it.
Wow.
So I was operating, I guess in some ways I was DPing, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't understand how the whole system works. So I started trying to get on jobs. I started working with people as an operator. And then I was like, well, what does, the person under them do? First AC. Okay. Well, then I started first ACing. Then I started second ACing. And then I realized I didn't like second ACing. So I went back to first ACing. I kind of stuck there for a little while. And
So you kind of broke right out of like high school almost doing this. And so you actually became a freelancer in late high school. Wow. So you really, that is
in
so
high
cool.
school, man. Paid internship. This guy was making content in high school.
It was weird. And I didn't understand how it worked either, right? Because the school district was like, hey, we've got 2 internships. And I was like, when you're in high school, they're like, oh, this is what you want.
Right.
Like when you go to college to get this. And I wasn't a good student. I was really bad.
Sure.
So when they offered that, I don't remember what I was making. Like at the time, it was good. It was like $2 more than minimum wage or something.
Yeah.
So I would film, what you call it, college night, or they need some footage for like the website for like what happened at the football game this Friday night.
Documentary.
It was like documentary style stuff. So I think that kind of gave me a foot in the door. And what's interesting too? There was this guy in our class, and I always think about this, is that he wanted to be a film director.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, man, who would want to do that? That sounds like such a hard life. And now I think I'm being punished.
That's so funny. Yeah. I remember us talking on set one time, and you're just like, man, I don't know why I do this.
It's like it's like a drug. Like, I've never been a drug addict, but if I was, I would assume, you can't stand doing this thing. And then every day you're like, you wake up and do it again. Like case in point, work a 16-hour day, have trouble getting home. I'm telling my wife like, oh, it's ridiculous. They work just like a dog. They made us set up a whole scene and then flip it, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to wake up early to get to set to make sure everything's done right, So it is what it is.
That's so good, man. Such a good analogy. So, super cool intro into filmmaking. Talk to me a little bit about like today, where you're at, kind of what you do, what your business looks like today.
Okay. So, it's primarily, I'm a cinematographer. I like I said, so I was first ACing, and then I was camera opping, and then I was DPing, right? I was like splitting into 3 waves. And then the main goal of first ACing, one was I loved it. I just like, everybody like stresses out about the pressure of it, but I enjoyed it. Like I liked being a technician. I liked pulling focus. But it also gave me like a front row seat to watch some of the best DPs I've ever seen, how they work. And, I remember listening to something and someone saying, if you don't feel like you're being challenged anymore in the position you're in, that's it. Like you need to do something else. Yeah. And then another buddy of mine was out in Los Angeles, and he was like, he thought it was so bizarre. He's like, how are you ACing and cam opping? He's like, usually like, out here you've got career first, career ops, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, it started to kind of weed itself out actually, I don't remember what year it was, a little bit before COVID. But anyways, that kind of just transpired into me just opping. So today, it's mostly DPing. It's a lot of commercial products, documentaries, films. And then on the camera op side, it's a lot of TV-based stuff and a little bit of commercial and documentary film as well. I also forgot to mention I shoot a handful of music videos every year.
That's awesome, man. Well, as a fellow DP myself, it's always a good time to connect with other people and just pick their brain to see how they approach certain projects. And so I got kind of a handful of questions today that really I just want to, see how you approach things and see if we can also add value to, those who are trying to learn as well. But when you work with a new director for the first time, for a lot of DPs, there can be some level of anxiety, and I don't know how this person, how I'm going to work with this person. What is do you have like a formulaic almost approach?
Yeah.
To working with a new director for the first time, and talk to me about like what that looks like when you step up to a new project with a new director.
Okay. So, yeah, that's a good question. And I will tell you, most DPs who are starting out, and even some DPs who are well established, first time directors is going to be a thing. I think one thing that's really good is like a conversation with them, like seeing like if the chemistry works, can you even work together? And then I don't want to say guiding them through the process, but kind of being someone for them to lean on. I mean, I've always kind of looked at it as a way of, our vision is our job is to create their vision, right? Like they may not completely understand how to explain it, and some of them do. Some first-time directors I've worked with are phenomenal. But my goal is to hopefully get us kind of in a world together, because they've never been there.
Sure.
So typically what I'll like to do is it's pretty much the same thing. Establish a relationship, look over the script, and I'm like, all right, let's spend some time away from each other. Do you have a shot list? Sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no. Okay. If it's no, if it's yes, who cares? This is kind of like a way for me to, I guess, get us in line. You go do your shot list, whether they've done it or not, because now I've kind of forced them to make one, and I'm going to do mine. And let's talk in like a week.
And so that's something that I actually wanted to dive into, because there's some gray area, right?
Yeah.
And some directors want control of the shot list. Others, they want to pass it off to you.
Right.
Some want to collaborate on it together.
Mm-hmm.
What has been your common experience in even just the shot list creation process?
As far as
do you typically work with a lot of directors that want to collaborate with that on you together? Do they want to give you one and then you can kind of give ideas, or do they just assign it to you?
Almost never is it like, hey, this is what's happening. Almost never.
Right.
There's a project that I'm lined up for right now that it was kind of that's kind of the feeling I'm getting. I was like, I want it shot this way, but it's hilarious. Like most of our thoughts were almost in sync. Like it was like, if we both had a card and we both an ace of spade and we lifted at the same time.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But no, most of the time they come in, especially new directors, I want a wide here, 2 mediums, an insert or whatever it is, right? Yeah. And I look at it and go, why can't we do all that in one shot? So then like a lot of times they're collaborative about it, because what they want is to make a movie that looks good. What I want is to make a movie that makes sense, right? So I want, the feel of the movie to match the camera. So for example, we did a film where it was a drama, and I got the shot list from the director, and he had pretty standard coverage in there, and all I could see is we could do 2 mediums here, we could do a wide here, and then we could call it a day, or we could do a really interesting wide and then get a couple close-ups when needed, because this is not a scene that's going to require all this. So a lot of times that's why it's nice to give that week between, because then we can come back, start talking about it, and we're both like, oh, that's a better idea.
Yeah.
So
dig it, man. Yeah, I've had a very similar experience where the collaborative process, like I've had stuff where it's like, hey, this is what we're doing. It's like, okay. But at that point, like they're not using you to help bring your vision to the project. You're like you're a worker bee, you know what I mean? And so the collaborative process is always something that I've found to be the most constructive to the film. But that also goes back to the relationship that you have with that director.
Right.
And so whenever you're meeting a director for the first time, you almost have to build rapport with this person as a like the first step in the process before you even get to the film is you have to create almost a little bit of rapport together, or at least you do in the process of creating that shot list or that, know.
And you're right. And to that point, I've always made this argument to directors. I'm like, look, I like you. We're friends. We're going to have good conversations today. When we get on set, that's where I don't want to say I take over, but that's where, I become a different monster. You're going to see me dealing with crew, and I'm not. There's nothing against anything we're doing. I'm just trying to get your movie done the way you want.
Yeah.
And it is kind of a thing. It's like, a buddy of mine told me one time, he's like, you got to turn your customer service face on.
Yeah.
Because we're all filmmakers. We're all like aggressive. We all want things done the way we want it. But at the end of the day, somebody's paying us to get this done.
Yep.
We need to make sure we do it right.
Yeah.
And I wanted to add to that too. So you were asking about different directors, how they handle different situations. There is a couple of people I work with, especially in the music video world, where they'll actually send me like a concept. Like, hey, here's what we're trying to establish. Here's what we want the shots to look like. That's it. And then, I'm like, well, let me get a shot list together. We don't want a shot list. Like, we know where we're shooting. We know how much time we have. We just want to make it work with the space. Sometimes that's better. It just depends on the people. So
let me jump in because, I've directed, commercials and music videos, and I've worked with different DPs, Joey, a lot of the times. So out of both of you, what do you like more? Do you like, because, I've done it all different ways, from where I've written out a shot list, very, very rough, like wide, tight, I want this coverage over the shoulder, this and that. And then a lot of times I'll turn that over to Joey. He can then, but I'm like, hey, this is a rough idea outline. And then a lot of times we'll talk through it and chop it up and make shots better. And he'll talk about different types of camera techniques we can do. And I'm like, yeah, that's I love helping the vision come to life, right? But what would you guys say is your favorite? Is it like if I just hand you the script or the concept and you go, and I'm like, hey, I want to make this dope, and you're in charge of making it, you make the shot list? Do you like the hard outline? It sounds like y'all both don't like this is exact every single shot, every single movement, because it kind of puts you into a box, right? So is there a preference, or does it depend on the personality of the director?
I think it depends on the project. A little bit, and if I'm being 100% transparent, just how much I even want to do it to begin with. Because if I'm really passionate about the idea for the project, I'm going to want more creative control over it. If it's something that's just like a paycheck and it's like, hey, if this is what you want, and I don't have to put any like creative effort into like making you, the director, or the client happy, it's not going in my reel or whatever, it's a job. But when I really want to do a project, and I'm really passionate about the project, and you bring me a concept and you say, you're like, what can we do for this? I enjoy the process of bringing my ideas to the table and having the director like sign off on that. Because I also don't want to do something that I think is cool that I'm the only one there that, they're just giving me that, but they don't really believe in it and trust it, So I will say that I'm not a big storyboard fan. I kind of refuse to use storyboards. I like shot lists because it helps me edit the scene or edit the film in my head before I even step on set. And that's something that I'm trying to do. Like, I want to visualize how this thing is going to cut, the pacing of it. Like, do I need multiple, angles from this one side because we're going to live on it longer? Just, whatever it is. But I like to go to a set and find the shot. I find that I have a better creative output when I am on set finding the moment rather than trying to storyboard all this. Oh, the character's on the left third and we have a perfectly framed up, out of focus bokeh, whatever on the right. And it's like, I just want to find the shot when I'm there, but I like the shot list because it gives structure to how the film will be edited in my head.
What about you,
So some of that I reflect. Some of it I don't. I'm a pre-production monster.
Yeah.
Like I agree with you with storyboards. A lot of times storyboards to me will get you trapped. Like, and the director too. Hey, this is how it's got to look. They got to be here. This is going to happen in the background. Well, what if the location falls through?
Right.
There's all this stuff that can happen. But I like to walk in with at least a shot list ready to go, have already scouted the location. Lighting is already planned out. Yep. Like, there's no questions what we're doing here. So if something does go wrong, we can figure it out. Now, with that being said, I don't put everything so concrete that things can't change. Because, let's say, like, okay, hypothetically, let's say we're in a location at a different time than when we scouted, and maybe our notes on how the light was going to come through the house was wrong. And happy accident happens. The light looks better. Let's just shift it a little bit.
Yeah.
Or let's say we planned a dolly shot here. We're going to dolly push in. It looks weird. Let's change it. Yeah. My ultimate goal is always to give the camera movement what the film calls for. Not I like making cool shots. I don't like making cool shots just to make cool shots.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my thing on it, if that answered your question.
Yeah. No, that's good. And I think from both of you guys, the flexibility on set is key, right? Because for creatives like you guys, but I love hearing both. Like, you want to execute the director's vision, and you're going to get it done, and you know how to do it. And your approaches are very similar. It sounds like just a few differences. But what's key, I think, for directors and stuff to keep in mind is, the hardest part, I think, is there's a vision up here, right, in my head, and I'm trying to get Joey to see that vision. But then sometimes when he's repeating that back, when you DPs are repeating it back, it's even better. And I'm like, oh, that's the real vision, right? And so having that flexibility not only in pre-pro and in on set is good. I'll just say, as a director on set, that's where it gets really scary, because you go, am I going to make this picture? Are we seeing the same film, right? As you start to deviate from the plan.
Well, and that's why I like I said earlier, the separation time between getting the script, getting the shot list. And if I can, say this real quick, there's a new program that everybody's been using lately called Shot Deck.
Yep.
That is super useful. As a matter of fact, the last film I shot in December, it was funny. So going into it, producers like, I really want to shoot on anamorphic lenses, and here's the look I'm going for. Cool. Let's get on Shot Deck, build our own decks, get back to each other. We were pretty close, but one thing that I noticed, because of Shot Deck was telling me, guess what? He didn't want to shoot on anamorphic lenses. He wanted to shoot on spherical. There was not a single anamorphic shot in his deck.
Wow.
They were all spherical, all long lens.
Wow.
So, there's tools to get in sync. And another thing I was going to point out about Shot Deck and how we don't use storyboards anymore, a lot of times we'll use Shot Deck images on our shot list.
Yep.
That way we can look at it. Even if you're looking at, sometimes you look at a shot list, it says close up, Sandy walks through door and is greeted by Stan or whoever. It doesn't really make sense. It just says close up. But then you look at the Shot Deck, image, you're like, oh, okay, I see what we're trying to do here. It's trying to be a long lens, like get the door in the shot a little bit. So anyways.
Yeah. Shot Deck, I know enough about it, but I haven't actually utilized it. Everyone around me is always pushing me to hop on it and whatnot, but it's so similar to storyboarding that I've always kind of shied away from it.
I think it's better more as a pre-production tool.
Yeah.
Especially when a director is trying to get the vision across to you, because for example, we shot a movie one time where they wanted a lot of really colorful lighting. It was supposed to be like a jazz sequence.
Yeah.
And had that director not have something to base that off of, he would have just told me, I just want blue and magenta light in here.
Right.
Or whatever it is. And I've been like, okay, well, we can do that. But because he was able to give me an example, then I could, figure out how to light the space.
Yeah. So whenever you have a director that you're working with and y'all's visions don't align, tell me a time when that's happened, or maybe how you approach dealing with a situation when there's a conflict with y'all's visions not syncing up.
Well, he got what he wanted. But, it goes back to, trying to give the director what they want, but also not just doing a cool shot to do a cool shot.
Right.
Which I'm a little more lenient on music videos with. With films, I'm like, we'll do it if you want, but I just don't you want me to set a jib up and do this shot because why? So there was an instance where the director wanted to shoot this whole project handheld. And I was like, there's no reason to shoot this handheld. None. He's like, yeah, but it's going to be faster. I'm like, okay, you say it's going to be faster. I say it's not, right? So I think I don't remember what the compromise of this whole thing was. I'm pretty sure we didn't shoot it handheld because able to convince him, like, look, you're letting your concerns take over your wants, and now we're about to damage the product. You know? And it's kind of the answer at the end of the day. What's the final product? You know, gold. You don't want something else, you know, just because I'm so scared we're going to run out of time. I'm so scared we're going to do this or that. Like, look, those things are going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it. Right.
Yeah.
You know,
that's good, man. One of the other things that I wanted to jump into and discuss is kind of going back to that pre-production process. You've said you're a pre-production monster. Tell me what your process looks like early on in how you prep and kind of, you know, determine the look of the film and the camera choices, the lens choice, the script breakdown. Like, what's your process look like?
All right. So number one thing is the shot list, trying to figure out what the director wants as far as the look. You know, sometimes it's a real edgy look. Sometimes it's not, you know. Usually we go in and do the shot deck stuff and then scouts. Oh my gosh, I want to scout. If I can't scout, I want you to give me as much details about the location as possible. And honestly, like, as much as I hate to say it, like, if there's not enough money for pre-production, we'll figure it out. Whether you just pay a per diem, whether it's a half day, I don't know. It's more important to me that we do double the amount of prep than we, you know, shoot a movie without any. And so shot list, shot deck, several meetings going through the script. Like, I want answers as to why this character thinks this way. You know, why is this character doing this? What are you feeling the motion should be? You know, then getting in the location so that way we can figure out if our shots even work. Because what I've found is if you don't do your scout and then you just have a shot list, like, your shots won't work without knowing the location. And then, you know, of course, tech scouting, making sure we can power lighting. I usually then, once we know the lighting can be powered, is, you know, find out. Gaffers always ask me the same thing. You know, can you find out where if they're not able to make it, where the outlets to every location, where's the breaker box at? Like, is there a spot to hide a generator if we have to hide a generator? Are we going to be intruding on other part of production's world? So once I know all that out, figure that out, we got our shots, we got our location figured out. We know what camera we're going to use, what lenses we're going to use. Then we start doing the nitty gritty. We'll break out the lighting diagrams, and the gaffer and I will work together to figure out, hey, what lights are going to work here? Because there's been a lot of times where, you know, got on set, and I'm sure you've had this happen too. I'm like, I want this light here doing this. And the gaffer's like, no.
Straight up.
There was a film we were working on one time, and I'm not going to get into why he said this would happen, but there was a specific scenario I called for with a very big hot light, and he told me no, and I was like, that's what I want. He's like, you're going to set that fabric on fire. Like, you'll set a 12 by on fire if you do that. I could do it faster and better if you just let me. So that's why the diagrams become a good thing, because we can talk that out ahead of time. Be like, hey, you know, I want a 4K bouncing off this into this window, and we can work that out.
So you bring up a good point too with the gaffer that I'm curious how your approach is. There are some DPs that are very specific as to what light they want through what specific fabric at what specific distance, and that is how things are going. Yeah. But then at that point, like, the gaffer is really just there as an extra grip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what is your approach even with working with your gaffer and your key grip in terms of, like, flexibility to execute your lighting vision? Do you kind of, you know, lean on them to execute something easier, or are you more particular with how, like, which specific lights to achieve a specific effect?
Well, it depends on how mad I've made them.
Yeah.
But yeah. So to answer that question, I usually will do, first thing I do when I get on set with the lighting and grip team is we'll walk the scenes out. Like, this scene's happening here, this one's here, yada yada yada. And then I'll explain based off the diagram. Here's what I'm thinking, like, is going to work. Do you think this is going to still work? Yeah or no, that's a stupid idea. And then we have it's usually a pretty good conversation. Nobody's angry, unless I stick my foot in the mud and I want it this way. Typically, we work it out. There is some times where, I might be like, I just think you're just trying to take the easy route out because it's easier.
Right.
But then I also have to consider the fact that I hired this person because I know their ability is there.
Yeah.
Also, some of these people I've been working with for the last almost, 7-8 years, they know what I want.
Right.
I don't really have to explain it that hard. Like I want soft key here, So yeah, I would say it's kind of a mix of both. I mean, there's situations where I want to do big, massive lighting, right? But the subject's not moving and they're sitting in one spot. Like, why? Like, and then there was this one project where, this is another reason that you listen to your gaffers, just to be clear. So we were shooting this film. There was an insane amount of lights for literally like one angle. Like we had them keyed, we had them filled, we had an edge light, we had a room light, we had light coming through the windows. I think there was a total of 13 lights on this one shot. And we had them flip all this lighting for the reverse. And then he's like, can we just get the camera up first? I'm like, well, no, we need to get started on it now before we get there. Well, about half of that wasn't in the shot. And he was like, man, they give me crap about that every time we work. He says, you remember that beautiful shot that we lit? Dude, it was so gorgeous. I wish it would have been in the movie.
Yeah.
That's good.
Oh, that hurts, man. Yeah. That's part of like the growing like process of a DP too, is like you have to make certain calls that, especially like I'm guilty of doing it, especially earlier on. And I'm not going to say that I, haven't ever botched it even nowadays, but it's like you try to be so ahead of like making sure that production doesn't fall behind, that you wind up introducing unnecessary work.
Yeah.
Or if you had just done something in a different order, that you would have realized something isn't necessary, or that something is necessary that wasn't there when you flipped the world. Like there's a wall of glass behind me. I didn't realize that I could have had, the whole team rig up all these different negative fills to cut these reflections down, and just little things that you don't think about, but you learn along the way. And so I'm guilty of that as well, man. So,
well, and to that point, something that I have to basically, hit myself in the head about every time is before I start coming up with ideas, I'm like, just put the camera up.
Yeah.
Find the shot first.
Right.
Because it's so easy to walk in there with the light meter and everything and be like, we're going to light it this way and the shot's going to be like this. You don't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's part of like, one, to your point, the tech scout is so important, but man, you can know how to light a room all you want, but you never really, really, really know until you see someone sit down and see how all the natural ambience and everything is really affecting them. So,
and I used to be really bad too about like getting the assistant to jump in the seat and like, let me light using them as a stand-in. Not the same height, same color.
Yeah.
There's 100 different things that the next person walks in there and you're like, dang, I'm screwed up.
Man, and it's such and I'm curious how you approach this, because so often like it is always best to light to the talent if you have the option. But so often that's not the option, that you have to light a stand-in. And I find so often that, their face structure creates unwanted shadows. Like I've lit to this other person that has different cheek structure, or, now there's bags under their eyes, and it's like, or their skin complexion, the highlight roll off isn't the same. And, all these different factors, how do you balance that? Do you just like have them sit in and then you're like, all right, well now I need to relight? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I usually do that. I usually get it as close to possible.
Yeah.
And I tend to shoot on the side of error, so we'll overlight it a little bit and then we'll start bringing it back down. And again, that's why it's important to work with a gaffer, because if you get sometimes, like to your point, you're like, I want this specific fixture, this specific lamp. Well, you may have just put the gaffer in a situation where you have to swing a light Like, okay, this light's not big enough. We got to get a bigger light now. Where, if you're telling them ahead of time, hey, here's what's about to happen. This might get smaller. Okay, great. Well, we'll put the big light, and then we'll be prepared to scrim it as many times as we have to get it where it needs. Now, that sucks, but that's a lot easier than saying, let's put a little 150 when we need like an M18 or something So
we're going to need 30.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. So tell me a little bit about just some cool projects that you've gotten to work on recently, and kind of some of the cool stuff that you're looking forward to working on.
So I shot a couple of things in the late fall, early spring that were pretty cool. Oh, in the summer too. I shot like a handful of short films that I think are some of my favorite films I've shot. Just like visually, we got to play with them and do what we wanted. I shot a music video in December that did really well, and that guy has now been picked up by a bigger record label.
Awesome, man.
And they called me to shoot the second video in Marfa was the plan. I think it was supposed to happen this week, but then they were like, we're going to push it because politics, and they're like, if it does better, they're talking tripling the budget.
Yeah.
Coming up, I got a bunch of stuff happening. Like, I got a call like not too long ago and was like, hey, 2 high-profile artists want to shoot music videos. Like, we're ready to go. Oh, and by the way, there's a feature film as well. It's like totally separate thing, but all of that's in the work. A documentary that we're working on.
It's beautiful, man. Congrats.
Thank you. And then what was the other thing? Oh, the pilot for a TV show.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's a lot in the pipeline right now,
Yeah,
especially for pre-pro.
Yeah, there's a lot happening, and luckily it's all staggered out, so it's not like, but I'm getting to the point right now where I'm like, okay, we're going to handle this project, and then go shoot a project, and then handle the next project. So luckily, the directors of all of these are very involved. So I've been getting lots of stuff. Like, on my end, I'm not having to do as much yet.
Yeah.
One of these projects, I even got it's like an animation of what the entire film will look like. So
wow. That's awesome, man. Super, super
Shot
cool.
deck on steroids there, huh?
Yeah, he sent it to me. Was like, here's what I'm thinking. And I'm like, oh, well, this is
the
great.
film's made.
Yeah. We just got to put AI on it.
Right. We had a conversation back in the day, too, on some just thoughts that you were having at the time about joining the union. Mm-hmm. Have you thought further on that and kind of made a decision one way or another on if you want to go union or not?
A little bit. I'm still in the process. I'm pretty much at the step now. I've already reached out to some friends who are in and said, hey, what do I need to do? Because I'm a little confused other than just, going on the website, trying to figure it out. I've got the the information to talk to a representative. I just need to start I need to finish gathering all of my materials together because they want call sheets.
But it is the plan.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm at the point now where, I don't necessarily want that credibility, but it would be nice to be able to put that on my name just to help me establish a little bit against some of the other people. It might also make me lose some jobs too, because I'm like, there's a union attached to this. I don't want to be a part of it.
Right.
But what I've found is from working with union camera people and being involved in those, sets is that things just seem to be handled a little better for the crew. You don't get into these situations as often. Sometimes you still do, where they're like, oh, we're going to work you 16 hours a day and not give you a lunch. And, there's just a lot of guidelines that I think I'm appreciative of, especially being a father where, it keeps me safe. It keeps me, not having to worry if I have somewhere to sleep tonight, just stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, so not like the music video that I first met Michael on. I got to tell this story since I feel like this is a good segue. So, I first met Michael. I was producing and directing a music video, and I had Joey as DP, and we were looking for a gaffer and first AC. Long story short, he came on the project, was a tremendous help because he knew what he was doing and helped get us through a lot of stuff, a lot of issues. that was on this film set. But that was definitely one of those 16-hour days. We had like a 2-hour drive home at night.
Yeah.
That was earlier in our production career.
Shane produced that project.
But it turned out really good. Yeah, and now we even I'm a father myself now, and it's like I'm not working. I mean, where's the 8 and 10-hour days at? I don't 12 that's past my bedtime.
Well, and I'll tell you, the hard moment for me to kind of segue off of that with the kids was I was on a shoot out of town somewhere, and I had been gone for a couple days, and I finally was able to FaceTime my wife, and my son is all like, where are you at? What are you doing? I'm like, oh man, I just want to go home.
Yeah.
But that project wasn't that bad. Like, in all honesty, like, it could have been a lot worse. You could have been like, oh, there's lightning striking the ground. I mean, let's just go. It's going to be fine,
We just breathed in a little asbestos.
Hey, future crew members working with Shane, he said the ringing endorsement from Michael Bradley is it wasn't that bad.
Yeah. Well, and that's another.
No one died.
No one died. But, and that's part of the hard part of us being in Texas too, is like, and this is an issue with every out of state producer that calls me. They're like, hey, we need you for a local shoot. Oh, where's it at? Oh, it's in El Paso. Can you make it there this afternoon? Not a chance.
Yeah. you know how big Texas is?
Yeah. Like, so in that point, I mean, the location called for us to be there.
Right. Right. Well, you guys crushed it. It was great to have you on that. And then later we got to work together on Washington's Armor. I feel like we've done a few other things I can't remember, but definitely Washington's Armor.
Spent a lot of time on that one together.
Yeah.
Crying.
Yeah. We did. In the mud,
in the
water,
in the trenches, technical difficulties.
I tell people all the time, they're like, you ever watch a movie and you see like how intense it looks? Yeah. Well, it's because it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. That rain scene, man. Getting that rain scene. I was underneath the
so fun.
That rain tarp and the gimbal and that motor heating up. So I was in my own little sweat lodge, plus your feet are filled with water, and I mean, that whole thing was
incredible.
Miserable.
We can clip that in, but
roll the tape.
Something I want to ask you guys both as fathers: how has having kids impacted your approach to just filmmaking in general? Like, are there things now that you just straight up won't do that I mean, obviously, like, they become the priority, but like, how do you feel, in your own words, has having them impacted you as a filmmaker?
I'll let Michael go first on this.
So when my son was born, well, actually before he was born, I started to realize some of these sketchy documentaries and stuff that I've been on, they got to stop.
Yeah.
Like, I was working on a project where there was a concern of being shot. Like there was a concern. And I remember telling the producer, I'm like, I love you. I want to finish this project. But safety is, not that it wasn't a concern. It was just the story. This is the world we were in. I was like, these things I have to take in consideration. Safety precautions I had to take into consideration. I don't want to get shot by an accidental gun going off or something. But then also it made me more hungry. Like I was talking to my wife about this the other day. Like, I always, set 5-year goals and stuff like that. Hey, I want to be here in 5 years, or, just that next to somebody I know from the industry. Where are they at? How do I get to that point? It made me realize, I was talking to my wife. I was like, when he's 18 and people ask, what did my dad do or does? Like, oh, he's a filmmaker. No, I want him to be very clear. My dad did this, not like, oh, my dad, kind of set some things over to raise the kids. Like, this is a career I've chosen, and I'm going to take my family with me. So I'm not going to, take my foot off the gas a little bit. I'm trying to so that was actually part of the reason too. Like, I started slowing down on ACing more, because I was like, I don't want to, nothing against ACs. They're phenomenal career ACs, but it's always been a means to an end, so to speak. And I feel like I want that journey to end and for my kids to see me progressing, if that makes sense.
I love that so much. Like, that's really cool to hear that, because I feel like it is commonly the opposite, where it's like, my kid came in, I wanted to be more involved, and
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that
No,
either.
no, not at all. And
It's-
sorry, not to cut you off, but I want to be very clear with anybody who's a filmmaker and a father. There is no right answer on how
Yeah.
you do that. It's
Yeah.
hard. I mean, even I remember when y'all first went back on Washington's Armor, my son was like 3 months old or
Yeah.
something like that. And I was like, I can't do it. Like, I can't leave my wife in that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And, so if you're a father and a filmmaker and you're trying to make something out of this, it'll work. You just have to find your route,
Yeah. That's good, man.
Yeah, I mean, I echo pretty much all what you said, man. I mean, I agree, and I like what you said about no right answer, because I'm in a season right now with my kid. Kaya, she's about to turn 1, which is super exciting.
That's awesome.
Next month, but it's the same thing. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to go do a 14 or 21 day away.
Yeah.
This is such an important stage that I want to be there for my kid, but that's not always the answer or the case either.
Right.
And so like I am super selective now. I would have said yes on projects where now I'd probably say no. But my career's changed a bit too. I was camera team and all that stuff, and really I moved into entrepreneurship and producing and, directing a few things here and there. But I go back to I share that same fear of it's the value, I guess, of your life.
Yeah.
I think, because I too, like, I was doing a documentary in India for 3 years. We would travel, gone for 10 days. It's a 20+ hour flight. I broke off and did a subcontract thing for another little doc piece, got in some sketchy situations. I went to South America and shot at San Pedro Sol, the murder capital of the world, and was just like, oh, it's guys walking around with AKs and we're filming, and now I'm like, no way, I got like I want to do it. So I think it definitely does set some different boundaries for you, not only in I've got to I got to get out there and provide for my kid, and I love the thing about that's not only just providing for them, but it's like, oh yeah, my dad created this. He did this, right?
Yeah.
It's like leaving a legacy for them to be proud of as well.
Well, too, if I don't do anything in my career and he's like, hey, I want to be a filmmaker. Well, great. Well, and my son, just to be clear, I've said this to my wife every time, if they decide to become cinematographers, they'll be 10 times better than I could have ever
100%.
been, just because they're getting free school from me.
Yeah,
but,
right?
But I mean, that's the thing.
You're welcome.
And you're welcome. And, it is that thing of, I want my kids to, see something that makes it exciting, makes it fun, and the sketchy part of it too, that, that's just part of it, especially in the indie world. There's so many things that just, we probably shouldn't do that. Yeah.
But we're gonna.
I mean, heck, like, even like I've heard this argument all the time about how if you've got a camera stuck to your shoulder and you're looking at a monitor and you're afraid of heights, well, you can still ride on the side of a helicopter because you're not thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens time to time.
Yeah.
But I mean, so to your point, yeah, that's hard. Like when that first year they're born, oh, dude, it's so hard to think of doing anything. Now that he's 2, I mean, he's bad, but I can think about going away a little bit. But again, now I've got a 4-month-old today, and he is.
Congrats.
No, thanks.
Yeah.
He's getting chunky and long. He's cute, but I think about those things too. I've now got a wife at home dealing with children. One was hard enough. Now I've got, one that can't walk, one that does anything but walk, just run. Those are things you got to think about.
Man, that is y'all are getting me excited. Right now.
Joey, get ready, man. Because at first it's just you have to weigh you have to weigh the job and the wife, right? And the wifey says, you're gonna be gone for 14 or 10 or 20 or whatever it is, right? But now it's that plus now the kids that you're weighing it and you're going, oh man, I'm gonna be gone for 10, 14, 21.
Yeah,
and you got to weigh it all out.
But to that point too, I mean, it's not that sometimes you can work this out where they can come with you, and that doesn't always work. But I mean, I have a job coming up where I told my wife, I'm like, just y'all come with me.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I don't want to intrude on anything. What are you intruding on? The hotel room's already bought.
Yeah.
And I'm shooting the project. There's a car.
Yeah.
Like, you'd be safer near me than something happen over here and I've got to fly back.
Yeah.
So. And your kids can be in the movie.
And they could be in the movie.
Yeah.
Like yours.
Yeah, Kaya actually, I through friends, producer.
IMDb credits already.
Yeah, Kaya was on a film, played Baby Jesus.
Oh, really?
And
I saw that.
Made more money than I could in the time that she was on set. I was like, man, she's already crushing it.
She had to work about that much of the time and didn't even have to open her mouth.
Yeah,
that's
great.
It. That's so awesome, man. So I got a couple more questions before we wrap us out of here. But are there any like newer emerging trends that you're seeing in the film like industry that are really exciting you right now?
Trends. I mean, all of this the LED wall stuff is pretty interesting. How that's gonna. I mean, all the things that I've seen is just you're really able to do a lot, and it's funny because it's not visual effects, so it's practical. So you're able to do a lot and really get away with a lot.
Have you had the opportunity to work in a volume?
No, I've I've been to a studio and watched a test of how it works.
Yeah.
And it's crazy just to wrap my head around. I don't know if I would like it, to be honest, just because I like being on location.
And I don't actually like shooting green screen for the exact same reason, because one, it's harder, but two, like there's a disconnect between the reality that you're actually trying to capture, and it, sometimes it's a necessary evil, but at the same time, I don't like doing it, and
Well,
but if we shoot all handheld, we can go faster.
Yeah.
Well, but it's for the actors too.
Yeah.
Because you put them in the space that's not real.
Right.
They can't react off of it,
Right.
So,
and that's what's so impressive about all these superhero movies that they're doing, where it's like, I can't imagine trying, like, and that room is like totally quiet, and they're doing the most like cringy looking like motions with, and they're trying to make it so, I don't know, man, I just can't.
That's why they get paid the big bucks.
Yeah.
Well, and you hear a lot of stories from people who've worked on those movies being like, I'm not even going to watch it because they don't understand it.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I don't think I would enjoy it too much. And then of course there's the ever-changing trends of filters and lenses. Like, it's funny, it used to be this thing like, I want the sharpest, cleanest image out there. Now I want the opposite. I want to make this image look bad.
Yeah.
I go back and forth on that argument. I really, honestly, the more I look at it, the more things I watch that I like, I think I want as clean, as clear as an image. Like,
it's a stylistic choice.
It's a stylistic choice. And actually, people have been shooting on Pro Mist and diffusion filters for a while now. And I was listening to something the other day. People are saying those are starting to even kind of fall off. People are starting to get tired of the halation.
Yeah. It's something too that I've been feeling a shift in the market with Pro Mist. And even me, like I have them, I use them on a lot of projects that I have super sharp glass. And so a lot of times I will slightly diffuse, just for skin tones and stuff like that, especially for interviews, like just makes people in the corporate space look a lot prettier, for no offense. But
No. You're not wrong. I mean, you're using a red camera and you've got this, super sharp lens on it. It looks like you could see,
all of their pores.
All of their pores. There's nothing wrong with putting a light Pro Mist on it. I actually saw a thing yesterday. A buddy sent me, somebody has apparently created a adapter that you can put on the back of a lens that gives you a variable filtration system.
Yep.
So you can actually take, let's say, a Zeiss or a Sigma. Sigma's fairly sharp, and put this on it, and you can now use a Sigma that matches like a K35.
Yeah.
And you can dial in the amount of
it's crazy
stuff. So I don't know. I think there's about to be a drastic change, as well as how easy some color grading and effects software has gotten too. I think you're going to see people are going to start, going back on, okay, we're going to do all this in camera and we might try to do it in post a little bit. So, that's my thought.
That's interesting. Yeah, I even just going back to the filters piece, like I just got back from NAB, and the amount of companies and vendors that were there that are selling new competitive filtration, both rear filtration and front filtration, and all the different, effects that you can achieve. There's a huge push towards it right now, but I'm feeling like the shift in everything not being so much about the Pro Mist anymore. and it being king, and then also just seeing also all of the new like AI like editing software that's out there that's doing all the work for you. It's wild, man.
Yeah, the AI thing scares me. But I've had some serious conversations with friends of mine who work in the technology field, and they're just like, man, this is going to be fast.
Yeah.
Like, I had a buddy one time, he had shown me some he was working on a children's book, like a moving image style book. It was supposed to be a book. It was like a film, right?
Yeah.
And he showed me these images. It's supposed to take place in like the Dust Bowl or something. I'm like, dude, where'd you find all this? He's like, oh, they're fake. They're 100% AI. And I could not tell you.
Yeah.
And then he starts showing me how quickly he was able to teach it.
Yeah.
And he's like, in 6 months, at this time, he said in 6 months, this will become so scary real that it could take over things.
Yeah.
Not like, the world, but like, certain parts of our industry. That was like 3 months ago we had that conversation. And some of the things that we're talking about today, like I've seen, people take South Park or something and making it look like a real image and turn it into a 70s sitcom.
Yeah.
I'm just like, dude, this is kind of scary.
Yeah. It's kind of exciting at the same time, but there's definitely some mixed feelings in terms of like the future of all of that. I got one last question for you, and then we'll jump into our final five. But in your opinion, apart from, just making stuff look pretty, what makes somebody a good DP in your opinion?
Communication and prep. Like, again, like if you plan it out really well and everybody goes in there, like it's just like a sports team. When they walk into like, let's say hockey or basketball or football is probably a better example. They've already got plays ready to go. And then they have a play ready if that play doesn't work. There's nothing different than what we're doing. So walking in there, they're just being like, oh, I've seen DPs that are really good. Their stuff is really pretty. But then you like work with them, you're just like, they don't know what they're doing. They're just like throwing it together as they go. So preparation and communication, because the more you can communicate clearly with everybody around you, be able to explain what you want, what they want, if something's not working for you, just own up. Be like, this is not working. I need help. That's going to make you a better DP.
That's good, man. That's so good. You got to have the humility to lean on your team.
Yeah.
Because there's an expectation that comes with you being in that seat, and like everyone expects you to be able to drive this train successfully.
Yeah.
And there are times when there are hangups, and being able to rely on your team and having the humility to be like, all right, what do I do, guys? Like,
yeah.
you don't want that to be the case like all the time, but there is time when you have to lean on your crew. So,
well, and it's collaborative. There was an argument I had with somebody, or I didn't have with this person, but they were talking about, like set designers. Like set designers work their butts off to make a film look pretty, but then you want to shoot it wide open,
right?
And it's like, give them some credit for what they do. This is collaborative, like yeah. So
that's good, man.
Bump the T-stop up a little bit.
Just give the focus puller a little help here.
I actually AC'd a job not that long ago, and the DP was shooting a moving person that was, maybe 12 feet away from me, moving into about, 5 or 6 feet away from me. And he wanted to shoot it on T1.3. And I was like, dude, like, when they're standing still, their eye isn't even in focus. Like, how this is going to look right now. And it was like on like a 85 or something, where I was like, there is no chance that I'm going to be able to hit this from point A to point B for you. Like, AI could not hit this if they wanted to. It's just not happening.
I know the exact DP because I've AC'd for this DP, and it's the exact same shot, exact same lens and T-stop.
It was rough, man. It was really rough. So anyway, don't do that to your ACs, the other DPs.
I try not to, and that's another thing. If the AC's like, hey, I can't do this, or hey, you got to stop down, speak up.
Yeah.
Like, that's to any ACs out there. When I was ACing, and let's say you had a shot with 4 people in it and they're not on the same plane, bring it up to them, because they're going to say, well, that person was out of focus a little bit. I was like, because they're like a foot in front of the other person.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
please go to 5.6.
Please. Just anything but where you're at.
Anything but 1.8. Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. Well, bro, we appreciate your insight and just chopping it up. I always feel like I'm starting to feel like this podcast is just an opportunity for me to get my friends together, so we're forced to talk and hang out.
Well, if anybody speak or out there listening to this, that's really what this is, because we've texted back and forth. Hey, you want to meet up this week? Oh, wait, I can't. I got to go out of town.
We've been trying to get a beer for like 2 years now.
Yeah, and it is what it is.
That's awesome, man. Well, we got 5 questions before we wrap you out of here that we want to ask all of our filmmaking friends. And my first one up for you, bro, is if you could go back and do your filmmaking journey differently, what is one thing that you would change and do different if you had the chance to do it all over again, man?
Oh,
it's funny. I think we need to like shift that question down to the bottom, because we're like, hey, we got like 5 quick questions, and then we just like boom, like
it's a big bomb to drop.
It's a big bomb,
yeah.
like right at the beginning. But I'm sticking with it, man. If you could go back and do it all over again.
yeah. I don't know. There was this gap of time in my career where I took a hiatus because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I guess that's the only thing I think I would have changed. I think I would have just been like, figure it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Other than that, like, I feel like I've, for the most part, gotten to do what I wanted. Maybe left the state. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's good. I mean, I think there's a lot of, I feel like most filmmakers that I know have taken some sort of leave at, during their career. Not all of them, but it happens to a lot of people, and, it's the name of the game. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, so to talk about that just for a quick second, I thought that you had to go to high school, then go to college, get a 4-year degree, and then you could become a full-time video person somewhere, which that's just not the case.
Yeah.
So that period between high school and me turning, I don't know, let's say 21, that area of time was a little bizarre because I didn't really 100% know what I was doing until all of a sudden I was doing it.
100% the same scenario for me, man. Mine was like I was going to college for business when I first started, and I was like, well, I'm just going to get all my basics out of the way, and then I was like, I'm not doing that, and wound up going to school for filmmaking, and I just kind of happened. I don't want to say it just kind of happened, but like it was here before I knew it.
Yeah.
And that like college, like getting prepared for the industry was a weird time in life for sure.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about it.
Yeah.
There's a whole other podcast that we've done. Is film school worth it? I think Joey.
Yeah.
That's trauma.
We can send people to that one. Oh, we had differing views, but both sides.
For sure. What is one thing about the current film industry market right now that excites you?
The technology. I mean, you're like, I was listening to some people talking about they worked on 1917, just talking about how the technology was not there yet for that film, and just some of the obstacles that they were able to overcome to make that movie. And it's technology. Like, we're now being able to utilize, with digital and wireless video and all this stuff. Like, we're able to like utilize things outside of even our industry and like professions outside of our industry to do things that I never thought we'd be able to do. It's pretty wild.
It's so crazy, man. If you think about it, like, technology and new gear for film used to take decades. We're so spoiled now, right? Like, remember when like The Shining made, Steadicam like a big deal, and it was such a slow process for that to evolve. And now it's like every month there's a new piece of gear coming out that's the modified, newer, updated version of the one before. Right. And it's insane. What a great time to be in filmmaking because of technology.
Well, like, let's take a gimbal, for example. That is like, I'm not a big gimbal person just walking with it, but that thing is so useful for so many things.
Yeah.
Like, put it on a jib, put it on a car, put it on a dolly. Like, people would have wanted that years ago and they couldn't. They just had to figure out a way to make it steady.
Well, and the tech on that has evolved so much even in the last like 5 years.
Yeah.
Like when I first started like operating glide cams and stuff like that, they weren't a thing.
No.
The big boys that were like 10 grand or whatever at the time and not popularized or mainstream yet, like you had to work on big movies.
Yeah.
And even then, techs were few and far between. Like the technology for gimbals has gone through the roof in the last like 7 years, 5 to 7 years, and really the last like 3 years, they keep just going. Once the Ronin S came out, I was just it's just been everyone's trying to compete with that.
Well, I remember when the Ronin 2 came out, I was like, well, everybody said it was heavy, but all I remember thinking the first time I used it was like, this is so useful. Like how quickly we can move it. Like I remember I was on a shoot one time, they had a crane that the thing was connected to, and they're like, we got to move this crane to the other side of the set, and then we've got to rebalance it for the shot. I could rebalance it while they were moving it because it was that easy. And that is light years ahead of like, the very first Ronin that came out where you could do everything right and it just gave up. So,
Yeah. Yeah, man. The place that we're at right now with current technology is I feel like part of the generation that has been spoiled even just by being able to be in the digital age. Because I started on mini DV tapes and then went to mini DVDs, and now I'm like, oh, we're in digital. Like, what a time to be alive. We're not splicing stuff or transcoding in real time anymore. But even now, like the new up and coming generation has so many more tools than even I had just like even 10 years ago. And so it makes it more competitive because the bar to entry almost keeps getting lower.
Oh yeah.
But I like the competition. Like I like that there's more filmmakers. I like that there's more content being created. There's more of a demand for content. It's a fun time to be a filmmaker for sure.
Yeah. Well, and what I think I've realized is these new DPs or new, younger kids that come in trying to do all this stuff. Like you said, like they could pull their iPhone out and they're already ahead of what we were when we were 16.
Oh, 100%.
And you're gonna watch them like slowly, like, well, how do you do that? Those grand, beautiful shots.
Yeah.
Well, you got to learn the equipment.
What is one piece of advice that you can give to filmmakers trying to grow in their craft or their business right now?
Probably, if you have like a system that works for you, a process, don't change any of it just because someone tells you have to. Even if you're not seeing the same level of success as someone else does, that doesn't mean that what they're doing is the same thing you're doing. I used to look at how other people shot and, the stuff that they did. I'm like, oh man, that's so cool. They get these big jobs with these cool looking, images. I'm like, but that's not even the same thing I'm doing. So trust your process and just like enjoy the ride.
Yeah. That's actually plays into why I made the jump from Final Cut Pro to Premiere. It's just because of like almost that comparison that, oh, the industry's over here, I'm getting left behind. And I'm like, there's still so many people that use Final Cut Pro, and it's like, it's just a different way to execute and stuff. And so that was just why I made the jump initially. And now Final Cut is the enemy because I've learned Premiere so well.
Well, and to your point, that was how I felt about switching to DaVinci.
Yeah.
I still have Premiere on my computer, but it just sits there and cries to
Crashes.
itself.
I was about to say everybody's going to DaVinci now. So Joey,
if you're not,
the tools on there are just unbelievably useful, man. I've been diving into it, and I don't really edit like a ton anymore.
Right.
But it makes me want to get back into it just because I watch all the tutorials on it, and I'm like, I just want to like mess with this program and just play with all these tools and everything. It's so exciting, man. The
color grading is like basically the only reason I got in there.
Yeah.
Because I now I can build my own LUTs. I can go in there and, like let's say at the end of a shoot week, I can go in there, or a day, real quickly just throw some looks on some of the shots that we were doing and get them back the next morning to the crew and be like, hey guys, this is working.
Yeah. Yeah. So where are we as an industry headed in filmmaking right now, and what should we all be focusing on?
Oh, I don't know. It changes year to year, because when COVID hit, I thought, oh, we're going to streaming. Everything's going to be streaming. There's going to be more work than we can see. And now I'm not so sure about that. I think people are trying to go back to the movies. I think that what we are doing is creating more jobs than we've ever seen before, because now like every small company can find a way to get video, or you can make your own stuff and put it on YouTube, or you can go work on a movie that, is either distributed or has distribution lined up, or is for a studio, or is independent, or I don't know. Like, I feel like in the next 10 years, the competition is going to be stronger because there's going to be more people seeking these out, but I think there's going to be more opportunities than we've ever seen.
Yeah, I think that there is more demand than ever before to match the competition that is surrounded by us. And so while there's more filmmakers, there's also more jobs.
Well, case in point, one of the jobs that I'm signed on for, when they called me, they were like, hey, we got a script. It's already funded. It's already distributed. We haven't even shot it.
Yeah.
And it's like, how does that, like, you would have never heard of this kind of conversation on an independent level. On a studio movie, sure, that would happen. But on a very small budgeted film, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's wild, man. Well, I got one more question for you before we wrap you out of here. Who is one filmmaker that you admire and why? You can't say Roger Deakins. P.S. Are you going to see him in DFW?
Yeah, I have tickets to the Blade Runner deal.
I had a feeling that you'd be there. Had a feeling you'd be there. But who is one other filmmaker besides Deakins that you admire?
Man, I don't know. I don't really have like a specific person. Like, that's a hard question. I really don't know.
That's fine.
I can't answer that. And the reason I can't answer that question is because I have a specific amount of people that I look at for specific things. Obviously Roger Deakins is one of those because I like his theory. On the other hand, I like other DPs, the way that they shoot, the way they handle a movie, certain directors. I saw All Quiet on the Western Front a couple nights ago, and that movie has been glued in my head for the last couple of days. So those people probably, right now are on my top list.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the movie that we were talking about, like an hour ago?
Just a minute ago. Yeah. So, some nights when my wife has to work late, Kaya and I that's when we watch our war films. And so poor little, I can only get away with that for maybe another like 6 months before she really understands what's going on the screen. Because that movie is intense. It is beautiful. And the realism, I'm a realist. And man, that scene in the blown out, bunker where the knife comes to play. I won't go into detail for people, but
I know it broke.
That was just so intense, and I was just like, "This is cinema. This is cinema right here."
This is cinema, and to the point, if you listen to the team that made that movie, did not have the budget to do what they did.
Dang!
Wow.
So again, technology finds a way.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to go check it out, but that's super cool, man. Well, we have really appreciated your time dropping in the studio, man. For people that want to get connected with you, how can people get in touch with you, man?
I mean, you can either reach out to them and contact me via that way, or I have an Instagram. I don't know what the tag is right now, so you have to put
put the graphic up.
We'll add it there. Yeah, but that's not helping our podcast listeners. I think it's like Michael Bradley.
I think it's Michael Bradley Productions.
There you go.
So you'll find me. There's some guy with a beard.
Yeah.
So
looks real Cajun on there. That's awesome, man. Well, hey, we appreciate you, your wisdom, your time, and just pouring back into this community. So with all that being said, if you are a podcast listener, be sure to give us a like, drop a comment, get in touch with us. And if you have questions, fire away, because we're going to do a Q&A episode soon. And so with all that being said, Michael, thank you for coming out. And this has been a great episode of the Rough Cut Club.
All right. Thank you, guys. I was like, who are you high-fiving?
No, I'm just kidding.